Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And since the new D&D movie is coming out at the end of this week, the whole week is Dungeons and Dragons movies. So today we are doing the 2000 action adventure fantasy Dungeons and Dragons. Here is your trivia question for today. What reason did Jeremy Irons give as to why he agreed to be in this movie? The answer will be at the end of this video. In the film, we have Profian, who is an evil wizard that is hell-bent on taking control over the land. Now, along with his right-hand man Damodar, who sports some beautiful blue lipstick for some reason, the two of them are trying to wrestle away power from the Empress and the current government that reigns. Now, the Empress is in possession of a scepter that can control gold dragons, and Profian wants to find the red scepter that can control red dragons. Now, like any good D&D adventure, we have our heroes that get thrown together to try and save the day. We have Ridley, Snails, Marina, and along the way, they gain friends in Elwood and Norda. This film is directed by Courtney Solomon, but only because of one particular fact. You see, Courtney had purchased the rights to do a D&D movie back in the 90s. Now, TSR and Wizards of the Coast decided that they wanted the rights back. So every time he brought up a director that would be able to make the film, like Francis Ford Coppola or James Cameron, they vetoed it and told him that he had to make it himself since he owned the rights to it. This, of course, was Courtney Solomon's very first film directing. The movie would unfortunately be a box office flop, as it had a budget of $45 million and only made $33 million. It also had an effect on most of the actors' careers following this movie. Now, obviously, some of the more seasoned actors were perfectly fine, like Jeremy Irons still had a long running career, Richard O'Brien, who had a long career leading up to this. In fact, his character that he does in this movie is based off the persona that he had for the game show The Crystal Maze. Also, of course, Tom Baker. If you didn't notice, he played Halvarth. And of course, Tom Baker is one of the most famous doctors from Doctor Who. Justin Whalen definitely did not skyrocket his career from this movie. In fact, he had some success with being Jimmy Olsen for a while on the Lois and Clark The New Adventures television show, didn't do much after this film. Zoe McClellan also only got minimal success after this movie, with some long appearances in Jag and Designated Survivor. Marlon Wayans, however, got very lucky, as the same year this movie came out, so did Requiem for a Dream and Scary Movie. Thora Birch was really hoping this movie would launch her into her adult career, as she had made quite a good career so far as a child actor in movies like Hocus Pocus. Kristen Wilson didn't get much success after this film, other than perhaps the Dr. Dolittle movies. Lee Armberg has been pretty successful with getting roles here and there throughout his career, especially being a part of the highly successful franchise Pirates of the Caribbean. Also, this movie was not the last time that he played a dwarf, as he plays Grumpy in the television series Once Upon a Time. Bruce Payne was able to stay pretty busy, but he unfortunately was the only cast member that decided to come back for the sequel, Dungeons and Dragons Wrath of the Dragon God, which we'll talk about more tomorrow. Here's two pieces of trivia related to locations. The bones that appear in the back of Profian's lair are actually real bones, as that scene was filmed in a chapel in the Czech Republic, where the bones were from a surrounding cemetery that had to be moved, and then they were decorated in this new chapel. Izmir, which is a location in the film, was originally going to be added into Dungeons and Dragons 3rd Edition. That didn't end up going through, but you can still find some modules in the Dungeon magazine that was made during that time. Now, this film had so many key things that any true D&D movie should have. Traps, interesting creatures, dungeons, dragons, but unfortunately, it just wasn't all that great. I did enjoy the movie. It's a fun fantasy adventure movie, but all in all, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of the episode, what reason did Jeremy Irons give as to why he agreed to be in this movie? In an interview, Jeremy Irons was asked why he was doing the film, and he said, "Are you kidding? I just bought a castle and I need to pay for it somehow." This was in fact true. He just bought a castle in Ireland and needed to refurbish it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If you'd like to see a movie get a review, just make sure to mention it in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.